the days get so long, so I'll just close my eyes. Far away is where I'll be, so if you need to find me.
Hey guys, happy Friday. Hope everybody had a great week. We did. Not happy with the temperature. It's starting to piss me off. But other than that, it was a great week. And having a good time getting ready for Halloween. Hope everybody else is out there getting ready, decorating, and having some fun. Tonight we are honored to have a guest with us. His name is Joe O.
The guy with the microphone standing in front of him.
Yeah.
Peace out, brother. How you doing? We got a guest today. We've got some a little pizzazz to the meeting tonight. He's with Steps to Recovery, and he's going to tell you, I don't know, what they do, what he does, and he's available for questions. And we'll just take it from there. Like I said, they're one of the organizations we try to associate with, one with many others. I mean, they're part of our network. It's all about network.
Network's important.
Yeah.
Network is important.
Now, are you a treatment center or are you a PH? Like, what is Steps to Recovery?
So Steps to Recovery is a, I think what is a PHP. It's a partial hospitalization. It's an outpatient program. We offer clinical services for residents who are in our recovery houses. So we offer recovery houses in addition to clinical treatment. You wouldn't be able to reside in our houses without being engaged in our services.
Right.
But you know, Levittown has no shortage of recovery and things like that. So,
they got one or two houses in Levittown.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a product of recovery houses in Levittown, well, I'm a South Jersey guy, and I came to Levittown just about 2.5 years ago, and moved into a recovery house, and slowly but surely, day at a time, put a life together for myself, and
Awesome.
it's kind of how I got set up over at Steps to Recovery about 1.5 years ago. I've been there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mr. Engineer spent a little time in Levittown too. There,
Yes.
it was close to home.
It's just nice that you offer that. Now, would you consider yourself like a transitional living kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of a loaded question in a sense, right? Like the idea of transitioning someone from being in a form of a treatment option and then reacclimating back to the outside world. Absolutely. Because we, at Steps to Recovery, we're not an inpatient provider. So that's where people are able to come to still engage in clinical services at what's called like the outpatient level of care. So what they're doing at that point is they're also, beginning to build a network for themselves of people in either 12-step fellowship if they so choose to, or, taking a different path to recovery. My path was definitely very much a 12-step path, but not just at Steps to Recovery, but just in general. I understand and have an appreciation that that's not everybody's path, and
Right.
So at Steps we are able to encourage people to find their own path to recovery, path to wellness, whatever that means for them, but transitional in a sense where they can only be with us for such an extended period of time. At which point, near the end of that, we're doing our best to make sure that they're still set up with continued support, continued housing. That's where I come in a lot of times just because of my connections in Levittown, as well as other places, So it's great just because they're able to build a network, get a job, do all that stuff that sometimes we're not able to do when we're out there.
Right. Right. And that's so important for our loved ones, because some of our loved ones start very young.
Yeah.
And they're out on the streets, and they lose that family support while they're active, and you don't think about it when they're young and they're out there. They may never have balanced a checkbook. They may have never done a load of laundry. So helping them understand and get to that point is awesome, and that's why I love the continued care in that process.
Yeah.
I just want to shout out to Stephanie is in the house, Christine, Eric, my man. Good evening, all.
My man, pots and pans.
Yes, and for those popping in, we have Joe O from Steps to Recovery, and he's just going to share a little bit of his story. And, we're open for any comments, any questions, and you know where to do that. If you can pop in the comments, pop them in. If not, give us a call on the call-in number. It's 267-737-8031. So with that being said, here's Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's good. It's very nice to be here. I was really honored at the opportunity to come. Any platform.
Oh, don't blow any smoke up
honestly,
already.
any
doing us a
platform I
favor.
can come and just kind of share, my experience
Right.
and some hope and stuff. It's what helped me to get sober, and it's what helps me to stay sober because what I get to do is ultimately just give back, right? So it's kind of that. I love the idea of a podcast. This is a beautiful studio. This is a really cool opportunity. I've never been in a place like this.
Right, you didn't expect it when you
I
walked in.
really
right?
didn't. I didn't know what to expect. Well,
Like
I
a-
looked at some of the previous videos. I saw the guitars. I saw the microphones. I knew it wasn't just a thrown together operation. With
The
a
bunker, no windows.
with a pair of AirPods and a laptop. But this is cool. This is a first for me. We had gotten the opportunity to meet briefly at the overdose awareness event at Steps to Recovery. Already kind of explained a little bit about what Steps is. We also have a detox and residential program as well called Silver Pines Treatment Center for people who need that higher level of care. And I started working in treatment, after finally finding recovery and everything. And, being born and raised in South Jersey, my parents are from Delco. They're Delco people, but they lived in Jersey, since probably the early 80s. And I'm one of two. I was born in 90, about 18 months or so after my brother. And my childhood was beautiful. Both of my parents were very supportive, and I was a big athlete growing up. And that's really where I found my identity. And looking back on it, I didn't know who I was if I wasn't an athlete or if I wasn't playing sports. And my high school was a relatively normal experience in high school. I went to school. I did fairly well in school. I excelled in athletics. Got an opportunity to play football at a Division III school in D.C. Went there, played my freshman year, and found drugs and alcohol really quickly.
Yeah.
And if you read the 12-step literature of the Alcoholics Anonymous in the big book, it says sometimes we drink just because we like the effects produced by alcohol. And that was my story. I wasn't someone who was a child of neglect, a child of trauma. I have gone to great lengths to try to get to the root of my problem, thinking there has to be something in there, right? There's got to be some reason I keep doing the things I do. And to be honest, again, it was more so just I liked the effects that were produced by alcohol and drugs. I do believe in it being hereditary. I do believe in it being a generational thing. My father would not mind my saying that he was an alcoholic and, celebrated 4 years sober not too long ago. So my dad and I share recovery together. But it was very much present in my family and in my bloodline, if you will. And even that, it's not why I turned to it. I may have been genetically susceptible, however you want to say it. But again, I went to parties in college and in high school, and I enjoyed drinking. I enjoyed smoking pot. Eventually, I enjoyed very stronger drugs. But really what made me an alcoholic or a drug addict was because I never wanted one. If you have one beer, there's no sense in that for me. I'd rather have water, unless we have a 6-pack that we're getting drunk with. And I guess that's when I knew early on it was a problem, because I would go to my best friend's house at 18 years old and I'd have a 12-pack of beer knowing he didn't drink, and what 18-year-old kid needs to drink 12 beers? And, early on it was I'll drink all, and I got into car accidents and I got into a lot of trouble, and, the writing was on the wall, the path where I was heading towards. And, I'll never forget, I guess it was my brother's high school graduation party, and we were at the house and we were drinking. My parents were never that family, but in spirit of the party, I guess, we were able to drink. And my dad got me the next day. I don't even know if he remembers this, but he said to me, "You scared me last night." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because every time I saw you, you had a new beer in your hand and you drink like I do." And that was like, that was important to me. I guess I didn't really appreciate it then. But yeah, the signs were there early. And, the college opportunity went away. The scholarship went away. And I came home and I started working in the restaurant business at a really young age. And I was serving and bartending and doing all that stuff at a really nice Italian restaurant. Shout out G. Morello's in South Jersey, because it was just such a great place. I met great people there, but you put an 18-year-old kid with very little responsibility in his life in this position to start making sometimes $200 a night. Gas wasn't as what it was today back then, and that was my only bill. So it was easy to, I think back at how dishonest I was for a long time, because it was easy to make $225, go spend $75 of it on drugs, and then come home and tell mom, it was a slower night, I only made this much, So the lying was there, the stealing from myself was there, the manipulation and all that. And that was my whole 20s. I was in and out of treatment. I think I did 9 treatment centers. I eventually stopped using what we used to call back then as Johns, or just little perk 30s, and I started using heroin at a 25, and that took me pretty much up until 29 when I finally got sober. And I watched it go from heroin and dope to fentanyl, and I remember that vividly, because I used to sniff my drugs and I would lay it out on my phone, not to get too graphic, but
Hey,
it's
you can get
important.
graphic. We don't pull no punches.
Good,
here.
because I remember in the beginning of it being a brownish color, and then I remember eventually it becoming more and more of a white and a faint brown, until eventually it just honestly almost resembled cocaine. And I remember the effects of that being a lot different than when it was brown, if you will. And overdose is certainly a part of my story. I think there was definitely too many that I'm proud to admit. But yeah, I mean, I'm unfortunately among one of those that if it weren't for something like Narcan and the right person at the right time being there, and definitely a God of my understanding, that I'm not here.
Right.
And in and out of treatments, did the relocation thing, did the faith-based treatment. I did Teen Challenge in Michigan. I did Mission Teens in Savannah.
Michigan, that's painful.
Lake Michigan in the winter, no less.
Is there any equestrian training in any?
No,
of
you
these
see,
stuff,
well,
dude?
it's funny, because if anybody's ever seen or read the book Holes, that was like their punishment at Teen Challenge, where if it was summer months, you were literally just digging holes and moving dirt for like a really intensive punishment. But again, this was like Muskegon, Michigan, so it's right on Lake Michigan, and if anyone from up there knows, they get something called lake effect weather.
Oh,
So
like
you go to
affects
sleep
snow
with
and-
no snow on the ground, and being
And
right
you-
there next to the Great Lake, you wake up to 3 feet. So if you had a bad enough punishment that you needed, you were getting you were shoveling snow on a Saturday for
That-
8 hours.
No.
And it was hell. It was hell. I didn't last there long. Well, I lasted 5 months. It was a 12-month program. They booted me out at 5, and again, like, came home and wanted to do right. Saw that look on my mother's eyes so many times, and my father still at the time was drinking, and though I never, to be honest and to be fair to him, I never recognized how his alcohol affected us. Right.
Right.
He was still my coach at all my games and present, and some of my greatest memories are leaving the field in high school and running and finding him and my mother, and all that was very much there, but he would say he was absent. He would say that he was more worried about drinking than he was about being present. And it got so bad to the point where, I would just feel like he deserved to hit me. Like I would get so intoxicated, I'd get into his face, and my father, like, I'm not a small person. I'm definitely bigger than I was back then. But my dad is what you would just consider a large man. Like, he's a very, very large individual. You got to something be wrong with you to
What
get
would
in
I
his
be,
face.
medium?
No, he'd be larger than you, though. In all fairness, I'm serious.
I always wanna be
because
medium.
You're a large gentleman yourself, and he would be a little larger than you, and I'd be in his face, pushing him and begging him to, like, hit me, thinking he just deserved the right to do
Right,
that.
right.
And like that's just like the insanity of where it got to. Like, thinking in that moment that if he could just physically hit me, that he'd feel better, right? Like, just how naive of a thought that was. But that's how bad it got, and that's pretty much my entire 20s, bouncing in and out of treatment. relocation thing. I did the Suboxone thing, the MAT thing. It's not for me. If it's for you and your mother and father don't have to get that dreaded phone call in the middle of the night because of an MAT, God bless you. All power to you. I'm an advocate for whatever is going to ultimately help people in the long run. So when it comes to people ask, as an AA guy, how do you feel working at a facility that offers MAT or does things differently than you do? I said, well, who the hell am I? Like, it's not for me to tell somebody how to be well. It's not for me to tell somebody how to find recovery. If somebody, again, has that opportunity to get another day above ground, right, and get another day for their chance, to make that amends to that person that's going to help them, or to, be a father to their kid, be a son or a daughter to their mothers and fathers. Again, like, I'm all in support of however somebody finds that.
Exactly.
So
we remain neutral ourselves.
Yeah,
but you have
it's-
to. But you know how passionate 12-steppers are about.
Oh, for
12
sure.
I mean, 12-steppers and mad people just clash. Man. It's like it's
And
two
that's-
different philosophies.
and that's the
And
thing,
we
you know?
just stay neutral because,
Yeah.
like you said, whatever works for you.
Right.
I'm not going to preach to you one over the other.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way, and just to kind of add to that a little bit of a layer for myself, I'm a 12-step guy. I work for a facility that encourages different forms of treatment, from MAT, if that's your track, to holistic models of treatment if somebody prefers holistic therapies, standard, or what I'd call standard 12-step approaches. But I'm also I'm a graduate student at Temple, and I'm a Master's of Social Work student at Temple. So I'm studying more of like the science behind all this stuff, just to
Right.
kind of further, I guess, give me another layer of how to look at these things. And all I've done is arrive at the same conclusion, like neutrality is the best thing. Neutrality is the best thing, because if I come with a strong opinion about it one way or another, I limit my ability to help somebody who feels the other way. And
Yeah.
I know all too well of how easy it is to isolate people and to make them feel stigmatized even by their own kind,
Yep.
So I try not to do that, whether it's in a meeting or whether it's just in any capacity. However I can be a help of somebody is always what I aim to try and do.
And that's important, because a lot of people out there are just so against those other paths.
Yeah.
And and I get it, I understand it. Like, it depends on which path you're going, you're walking.
Yeah.
So
See, fortunately enough, we were on both sides of the fence.
Sure.
I was one of them people until I educated myself and found out I was able to wrap my head around that this is actually a disease. I mean, I come from a whole family of alcoholics and drug addicts, and so does she. And that was always our biggest fear with our loved one.
Right. Yeah.
And it skipped a generation, and I always to tell him, I mean, you got to watch, you got to be careful. I mean, you're susceptible for it.
Yeah.
And he did, and it got him. You know what I mean? And he came from a good family, like you said. I mean,
Sure.
it's an equal opportunity
Absolutely.
destroyer addiction is. I mean, it's really weird. I mean, all walks of life. Everybody's. I mean, and everybody's not my family. You shake any family tree hard enough,
for
you're going
sure.
to find addiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not find it.
right. And the craziest thing is, you expect to go in, like, we would have speakers come in to our family group, and we would expect to sit there and listen to them. I was homeless, low income, my parents beat me, and that's just not, like, very rarely did you hear those
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
It was more, the 6-digit figure family and the
My
best
father was a
neighborhood.
cop. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
everything. It's like,
Yeah.
and like when I did outreach work down in Kensington all the time, most people down there were from the suburbs, like Newtown,
Yeah, absolutely.
Doylestown.
I have my own opinions about that, and I kind of arrived at this thought of, I just recently spoke at Camden County Overdose Awareness Night, and that was an honor because that's where I'm from. Unfortunately, a lot of those in remembrance that night were friends of mine, teammates of mine, in that audience of several hundred. I knew too many mothers that I'm proud to admit were there to honor their sons. And, I have a theory, though, that because of where we're from, right, in this greater Philadelphia area, be it Bucks County or any of the five counties, or even in the South Jersey, like, there's more of a likelihood that we were either raised by families who worked, right? So as a child of that age, right? Like, though I worked from a young age, I remember scooping Rita's water ice at 13 years old. That was my first job. Or maybe like 14, 15, whatever it was. That was my first job though. So,
Right.
you know, I'm never going to be the one who claimed to be the hardest worker. I'm not like, I was doing this at 14. I wasn't, you know, but I was making my own money.
Right.
And when I wasn't making my money, my parents were the, you know, here's $40 for the mall or something like that, right? So I think that the availability, and this is just my theory, I don't have the statistics to support it, but when I look at an area like Levittown, or when I look at one of the areas that have that close proximity to a place like Kensington, or in my case, my Kensington was Camden, there's something to this fact that as a white kid from the suburbs, I could get as high as I want on these $25 pills because I had the means to do that, right? Be it through my
Right.
own money or my family parties that I'd gross some decent amount of money from, right? Like whatever the situation was. So then when either the money started to run out or it didn't quite go as far, Camden was only a 10-minute drive up 676, you know, or Kensington's only a short drive down 95. So I think that's, I think that's why certain like middle class areas surrounding those lower income areas and those Kensingtons and Camdens, I think that's why sometimes they have that tendency to get hit a lot harder.
Yeah.
Because there is more of that availability of drugs for that person to get them started. Nobody starts out at, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but few people start out at whatever age and go from drinking beers with their friends to going right to Kensington and getting dope.
Right,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
It's such a progressional thing. I am an advocate for feeling like a lot of times when kids are smoking weed at 13 years old, it's easy to say like, oh, it's just weed. It's like, yeah, well, you know what? It was just weed for me for a long time, you know?
Oh yeah, right. Well, I'm very passionate on the whole weed thing. I
Yeah.
think it's a very dangerous, slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
especially the weed today.
Oh, and it's
I
crazy.
mean, it went from 5% THC to 95%.
right. It's
THC.
insane. you
It's
know?
just like heroin.
Yeah.
Like heroin 30-something years ago was only about 12% pure in the Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, Kensington had the best heroin in the nation.
Right.
And they were saying it on these shows like Nat Geo and this and that. You know, and like, 95% purity or higher.
Yeah.
You know, and like I would come across kids down in Kensington. Like one kid I always bring up, I was talking to, I said, "You look real out of place. What's your story?" He goes,
Right.
"Oh, Pappy, I'm so embarrassed." A real smart kid. He said, "I seen on National Geographic Channel the best heroin in the
Yeah.
nation was in Kensington." I was on a bus within 2 days. I've been stuck down there for 2 months from Washington State, like
Yeah.
out of Oregon. I mean, that far he traveled, and he got caught in that vortex down there.
And
it's
that's
like,
exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. I mean, it being a very well-traveled area because of all the major cities that are around here. I've come across people who are, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Well, I came up to here for Thanksgiving. And
Yeah.
my uncles and aunts who I went to Thanksgiving, they're over in Chester County, or they're over in wherever, Woodhead, whatever they're at.
Well, you
and
drive around, you see the license plates.
and
on
they're
the side
everywhere.
streets,
Yep.
Missouri.
Yep. And they made their way down to Kensington, and they never got out.
And they
you
never
know?
got out.
And they never got out. And it's
Sell
it's
the car, they sell
right.
everything.
And it's scary. It's scary to think about. It's especially now out there with that trank dope that's out there, and
Yeah.
I just
It's very
Yeah,
scary.
that's creating another whole problem
A
in
whole
itself
nother-
because nobody wants to accept them with open wounds
Exactly, yeah.
in there. And Valley Forge now is going to a short-term facility now.
Yeah.
They're changing their whole
Yeah.
forte. So they're one of the few that would
They're
accept people
bandaging
with
it up
open
and
wounds.
sending it out.
there's
It's-
people who work down there, and that's their outreach. And Meg Cohen is a friend of mine who's of the Grace Project, and there's some others that I know who do a lot of nonprofit 501c3, a lot of front lines in the trenches outreach work, and God bless those people. I feel like
Yeah.
that's a very special type of a person who can week in and week out expose themselves to that element that's down there. My outreach has me just in a little bit of a different. That's what I do at Steps, and at Silver Pines. I'm an outreach coordinator, so I'm just, again, I'm an advocate for whatever way I can place myself within someone's path, either down that in that area or everything else. I mean, that's the obvious one, Kensington, but we are unfortunately as a country heading straight into how I see as an epidemic with methamphetamine being the next thing.
Yes.
Well, it is, especially now, and I think a lot of people gravitated towards methamphetamines for feeling it's a safer drug
Yeah.
than heroin, which we all know everything's adulterated with fentanyl
Right,
now.
right.
I mean, you can't even get synthetic pot, K2,
Right.
or spice
Yeah.
without fentanyl and a possibility of it.
It's true.
It's crazy. I mean,
It's
they're
true.
trying to get you hooked on the Fetty,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're like they're businessmen, and they know,
yeah.
and they know how addictive it is.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like with heroin, when they say heroin, the first time you try heroin, you stand a 50% chance of an addiction to it, just out of the
Just
hole.
from that, yeah.
If you take it a second time, that climbs to immediately like a 75% chance of developing a dependence. There's no other drug like that could grab you that fast.
Right. And it's crazy. I mean, let's look at the fact that someone is at that point where like using dope is the idea, right? Like there's a lot of there to catch even prior to that first actual use of it, and that's in my opinion, and I can sound cynical here. Like there are the steps to recoveries, the Silver Pines, all the places where somebody is able to go and get help, and like I got sober on Medicaid, so like I know that the options for uninsured or for underinsured are not as great. I'm not an idealist. I know that is the case, but I also know that it's possible.
Right.
To get sober on Medicaid, it's possible. I have connections at all sorts of places that I connect people to treatment for. In my opinion, it's if you are above a certain age or a certain threshold, right, of a point, you have the option and you have to do the work to get sober, or you unfortunately run that risk every day of being another statistic, right? My goal is that I would love to be able to get this next generation who are susceptible in all of their own ways and all of their own rights, these freaking phones with social media that they're being raised on in that way.
Because I had a phone I got when I was a kid, I'd have been in 10 times the amount of trouble.
Right, exactly.
I used to have to walk like 8 miles to the shopping center to find my friend. Ain't nobody here.
Yeah,
Shit.
yeah.
Let's
Gotta
go walk
walk
8
somebody
miles over
else.
here.
Yep.
Like,
And I just look at it like, if there's a way that I can help, these I don't want to say these teenagers and generalize them in such a sense, but I am a little pessimistic when it comes to the problem that we have on our hands today, because I've lived it, right? We've lived it. We've known what it takes to have to endure it and get through it. And it's not easy. It's so worth it. I can't stress enough how worth it it is.
Yeah.
But it does take effort. It is simple, but it does take effort. It does not take skill to go to a meeting or to go and ask for help. It takes a lot of humility and everything like that. I certainly don't take from that. But these kids that are coming up now, like I feel like the only chance we have at correcting our nation from this really hardcore, intense opioid epidemic we find ourselves in is to not, hopefully to prevent as many as possible from the next generation coming up from falling victim to it.
well, we're losing a whole generation of thinkers and decision makers.
Sure.
People don't realize the immensity of this problem. And it's like 107,000 people. That's a modest figure.
Right, absolutely.
Last year,
Those are the reported numbers.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that's more than we
Right.
lost in
Yeah.
20 years of Vietnam and every death in the Middle East up till yesterday.
Yeah.
That exceeds that, and in 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean it's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know, I guess I'm waiting for, from a social work aspect, I guess I'm waiting for when we, the whatever generation we are, the millennials or whatever,
Millennials.
to start to be in some positions of some decision making, and to start having some. It seems like it's still the generation that's a couple above me that are still running for office, and like I'm waiting for the day when
I'm a
maybe-
boomer, by the way.
Well, there you go. As are my parents and
barely.
things.
I've been
Yeah, my parents
skated
are
into that
boomers. I'm
boomer
just, I'm just looking, and that's kind of why I have a real interest in social work, and I like to do it on a macro sense, where I'm hopefully one day being able to share my experience in front of decision makers and things like that, because I think a lot of this, and shout out to another one, is Sarah Laurel at Savage Sisters, is that she and her organization are very, a lot of their outreach is though grassroots, very, in the
I
trenches.
heard that brought up a lot. I had the opportunity to meet
Sarah
with them,
is
but-
awesome because she and her organization, they're taking it to schools. They're taking it to. They're
That
very
is-
big on. They're very big on harm reduction. But she'll march up Harrisburg, and she'll and she has, right, and that's such a testament, because she has that power of her own experience. But she also has that support of a lot of people who know what type of good she's
Right.
doing right down there in not just
They should
Kensington,
be able
but
to
in
get into the
Philadelphia.
schools, because my honest opinion, I think DARE stinks. I think the whole DARE program
Dare
is a big
sucks
failure.
ass.
Yeah.
I don't even know why they still even.
I think it's
entertain it.
considered easily one of the worst federal programs of
Definitely.
any in
Yes.
recorded history.
And unfortunately, Ben Salem is still
Really?
doing DARE. Yes.
We were involved with
It
that. They making a
drives
decision
me
on what
crazy.
pencil toppers we're going to give away this year for the poster contest.
Right, yeah.
And
yeah.
and I mean, we all had a funny story. I
They
mean,
got Narcan in schools yet? I know that's a whole issue in and
Yeah,
of
that's
itself.
tough with the whole nurses.
And
I brought that
it's
up.
sad because they need it in elementary
It's like,
schools
why
today.
not have
It's
it? You
getting
know
there.
what
I
mean?
talked to a
Like,
school nurse and she said no. I bet you know.
that's just naive. That's
but-
just
but
we don't
it
have
is
this
starting
problem. We
to
don't
come
need it. Like,
around.
yeah, you do.
Right, exactly.
You don't
It's
need it
scary.
until you need it, and then
Exactly.
what happens
And-
by you not needing it? A child's
Exactly.
lost.
I
at a
mean,
young
and
age.
if the child just grabs it and takes it, I mean, like time's
happened
of the
in-
essence. I mean, well, you know.
It happened in
carry it.
Camden County.
Yeah.
And if,
where I'm
and if
from.
it's a bad call, Narcan doesn't harm nobody. It
Right.
doesn't hurt you.
Right.
So it's
No.
you know I never understood
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
We're lucky that we got the cops carried it now. That took forever.
Yeah, no, it's true.
That took forever.
That's true.
Oh,
I have it. I'm sure you carry it.
I
I
carry
carry
it. Oh, we
it.
got
I
it
got
all
it
over.
in my gym bag, my work bag, my car, because
Yeah.
I'm never without
I have
all
it with
three.
me all the time. I have it in my truck, my
Because
commercial
you never
vehicle.
know.
Yeah.
Because in today's society, it's going to
No, you
take
could be a
more than
Wawa.
one.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's the saddest part is with
I'm a
this.
truck driver. I had a guy on 95 stop dead in his work van, and I'm driving by. I go, that guy's dipped up, and he's like, traffic's going around. He was out in the travel lane. I get out. I go,
Yeah.
yo, buddy, are you okay? Oh yeah, I'm fine.
I'm fine,
Put him
but
back.
yeah,
And I go, well, why you? No, I'm sure. I'm like, oh my god.
That's
Yeah,
scary.
it's scary today because it's happening a lot.
Yeah.
And,
It's
what's
happening
really
a lot.
bad today with being a millennial and all, like I'm a little older than you and all. Marijuana was always there and drinking was there, but heroin was always just another culture. It
Yeah.
was a subculture.
Yeah,
back
yeah,
then,
yeah.
You know what I mean? They kept to themselves. They
Yeah.
didn't blab. They didn't broadcast or anything, and
Right.
they kind of stayed to themselves. It was their own thing,
Right.
and they were like kind of different than us. You know what I mean? It was taboo.
Mhm.
I mean, they were the hardcore.
Yeah.
You know, but. Whereas today it's so much more acceptable in young
Yeah.
people. I mean, especially starting out with opiates, with pills, and
Right.
and Workasets,
Yeah, yeah.
and stuff, and then which it ends up gravitating down to to heroin eventually because it gets too expensive, and like you said, you used to snort it there. Well,
Yeah.
the encephalated don't last long. I mean,
Yeah. No,
I
it's
mean,
true.
everybody says, "Oh, I only snorted." I said, "But that's not going to last long. Trust me,
Yeah.
I'm going to
No,
tell you
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
that." But it's so much more acceptable amongst young people.
It's
today.
acceptable. It's
You know what I mean?
available. It's obviously astronomically more powerful, and it's scary because it's these my mind hadn't even yet developed before I was starting to flood it with such intense narcotics and things like that.
Exactly.
And I mean, the brain is not formed until such later part of beyond adolescence
Especially
into
for
young adulthood.
men.
Yeah, and it was so intense because now I'm taking these copious amounts of these hard drugs, and that it just went so far beyond experimentation very early. And again, it was. I like the effects produced by it. It made everything better. And, I'm playing pickup basketball with friends at 20 years old. It would be more fun if I was high playing pickup basketball.
Right,
with
right.
Like, it
Right.
was such a warped sense of my
Right.
reality. The Big Book says it became my only reality. It had totally flipped where being under the influence was the only thing that I knew, and if I wasn't, and it was, I can only imagine how scary it is.
You
for
start
loved
wondering,
ones
like,
and
why is
shit
that everybody
because-
do it? They don't know.
Exactly. No, it's really what it was. And like when I think about it, and this is something that I think about a lot when I try to get through to sponsees and stuff about the power of it and how it does exist so much within the mind, is that I use the same example. I say, especially if their twist was dope. I'm like, all right, so it's Friday and you're dope sick, right? And he's like, yeah. And like I make him remember. I say Saturday you wake up, you still don't have anything. You are so dope sick now. You're going on like 18 to 24 hours without it. You're really starting to settle in. You want to like cut your skin and hang it over a clothesline type of feeling, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, and then Sunday you get that magic 2-word text from your dealer that says, I'm good. I said, how do you feel? He goes, oh, I'm jumping up. I'm getting in the shower.
yeah, just
you
the-
don't
the
even have the
anticipation
drug
itself.
in you.
Right,
You
you're
just
right.
know that you are. He says, I'm good. Be home in an hour. And in 50 minutes, you're dressed in the best clothes you've worn in 3 days. You've showered. You might have had something to eat or drank some Gatorade ready. And you're sprinting out the door. And I'm like, and you didn't even do it yet.
Just the anticipation
The
gets the
anticipation.
dopamine
You
firing
get it
up,
in
you know
your
what I mean?
hand. You get it in your hand. You immediately go and do it. And it's right back to like, this is that feeling that I've been missing. And then what is it? It's like 2 hours later. It's like, all right, where'd that go again? I gotta go re-get that feeling again. And God, man, it's so sick. It's
insanity.
everywhere.
I mean, it's like a temporary insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, you just keep searching for that feeling, like you said, and I find the whole what's the word I look at? The whole clinical end fascinating, you know, with with dopamine levels and everything,
Yeah.
and everything. It just messes up
Your
brain.
baseline changes.
Yeah,
And,
and your brain stops producing chemicals and
Mm-hmm.
they foster certain emotions and all that. Why people don't feel no empathy or
Right.
guilt, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, I just heard one of our guys at our meeting, one of our clinicians or whatever
Mm-hmm.
was talking about. They said like with this meth now, it creates such copious amounts of dopamine start
Mm-hmm.
coming out of your brain, and that's why they're getting these psychotic episodes and
Mm-hmm.
all, because schizophrenic people have
Yeah.
crazy levels of dopamine in them for whatever the reason of their schizophrenia.
Right.
So it causes like a delirium, and like these meth, these meth addicts
Yeah.
are experiencing the same thing that a regular schizophrenic
Yeah.
would do. And I mean, I just find that amazing when people can explain it in those parameters.
Yeah.
Things make more sense to me.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, that was my hardest thing with like.
Our family programming over at Steps is awesome. We do it for our clients. They have their families in person, and something as simple as using some form tools like education and things like that. It helps because so often it's not just the family member. Sometimes it's the client or it's myself. You know, where like I still have this all intensive like question of why, right? Like why? I need to know why. And the truth of the matter is I kind of stopped asking why. Right? I stopped asking why a long time as far as like, why am I like this? At the end of the day, man, like you are. So like, what are we going to do about it is kind of where I got to. But then when I was able to be educated, just to your point, on the why, right? And I
Right.
understand that, you know, when I'm using these amounts of heroin or whatever my twist is, you know, especially, you know, it says like when you have an orgasm from sex, it spikes this much, right? And then when you have like alcohol, it spikes this much. When you have cocaine, it spikes this much. You have heroin or you have methamphetamine, it spikes 120 times, like such
You used that rationale last one time when you were explaining it. You said it's like an orgasm like 100 times.
Oh, it's
stronger.
insane. So you and
like,
it's proven.
to
Like
try to
your
describe-
baseline, which was here, is all the way now up here. But the problem is that your brain can't comprehend that, so it's got to regulate itself. But you don't come down to where your baseline was. You shoot through that like a freaking basement floor, and now you live at a new baseline that's down here. And what's nuts is like I can remember there was one remember so vividly. My parents probably have unfortunately so many examples, but I'm helping my aunt move. And I'm a miserable prick because I don't have any drugs in me. It's early on a Saturday morning. My brother is not like me. He's, you know, up and at him and moving. And my father's up and at him and moving. And I'm just like miserable, right? And I had some money, but I couldn't get my hands on any pills before I started helping her. And I'm, again, miserable. I'm moving. And then literally when I knew we were moving out the very last couch, at the same time, my dealer hits me up and says, I'm good. So I knew that I was going to load that last couch in the U-Haul. I was going to drive with my father and brother back to my house. I was going to lie and think of some reason that I was going to drive back out
Right.
almost to that same exact area and get high. And it was almost like a light switch. Like I was still the same miserable person, and I get that I'm good text, and now I know it's in my near future that I'm going to get high. I'm like, what else we got? What else we got to move? I'm like,
Give me that sofa,
that's
baby.
it, right? So my baseline that went right back down to here, like just even before I started using, had begun to climb a little bit, you know, and that's where I operated from. And you could always sense it. You know, we as addicts, we think it's by what we're doing. That's the tip for our loved ones about what my mother would say. It's not about what you do. It's about what you don't do, you know? And when I come home and just bypass her and my father and go right into my room, it's not that I went into my room. It's that I didn't say hello to them. And I always usually say hello to them and things like that. So I managed a recovery house, and I would tell my guys, I'm like, you think you're gonna come back and you're gonna like, if I sit totally straight, you know, Joey won't know I'm high, and I'm just gonna make sure my eyes are real big and I'm following along and shit. And I'm just like, you don't sit like that ever. You never sit like that. You're hitting your vape and you look like you're pissed because you're in a meeting, and I understand that. You don't ever sit like that. You know, you're cleaning the cobwebs, and I did this. You're cleaning the cobwebs in the ceiling at 2:30 in the morning, bro. Like, give me a piss test right now. You know, we gotta get you some help.
Yeah.
wrong here.
We got to get you some help, you know, and it is because it's crazy. We think it's
Yeah.
by what we're doing, and it's always usually by what we're not. But
Right.
I mean, back to your point, like, you know, though, like that's how I know I'm a true addict and alcoholic, because it doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to abuse it. And I was with two friends. Neither of them are with us anymore, unfortunately, and they introduced me to methamphetamine. And when I say that drug in a matter of a month and a half took me to depths that dope took me years to get to, meth took me there like that. Like I'm selling things that I swore that I'd never sell, and I'm sneaking out of my parents' house. I used to do concrete at the time. I'm sneaking out of my parents' house at 3 a.m, claiming I have to go to work early just so I could go and grab some meth from guys I knew didn't sleep because they sold meth. And I'm sitting at the job site, 4 hours before anyone needs to be there, and I'm just getting high, and I'm like, so that's, I didn't think I used any heroin around those couple of months that I was using meth, but it's like, you put one in me of anything that's mind or mood altering, like I am going to chase it to the ends of the earth, because until I got right with God, until I found AA, until I found some purpose and some empowerment again, whatever could get me out of myself was anything that I kind of chased.
Now, do you find yourself doing the more thing with maybe shopping for shoes, working out?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I know that a lot of people will change that.
Yeah.
To,
And I definitely did so more in the beginning. I have to say, I've not been sober a long time by any means, but I've been involved in the meetings and things, and I've put together a life for myself. Better yet, God has saw fit to put together a life for myself. So my days these days are incredibly busy. I work hard. I'm in school again at the graduate level. I have a life that I share with a beautiful young woman. We share an apartment together. We have an 18-month-old English Springer Spaniel puppy who's like got me up at early hours and all. So like my life is very full, but I can absolutely identify like early on when I was living in a Life's Journey recovery house where I went through, it was no gyms were open at the time because it was still COVID. But I'm like working out in the driveway and then, doing some push-ups. So the workout thing was big for me because I was still sick. Like I was still, if I can look better, I'll feel better. And if I feel better, I'll get the attention of girls more. And if I get the attention and I was just still seeking to fill the void of, I still needed validation from people. I still needed to get everyone else to tell me I was great and all that crap, because I never felt okay with myself. I just now no longer had that outlet of drinking and drugging to get outside of myself. So I'll get outside of myself however that looks, whether that's, acting out on behaviors. I mean, it could be meetings. I could be going to so many meetings, and it's definitely not the case so much anymore, unfortunately, but I could go to so many meetings for so many of the wrong reasons. And like if you told me or tried to check me on my behavior, I'm like, I'm at meetings, bro. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's like, you're at meetings because you know that if you stay at the house that, you can't sit with your own self for long.
Right.
And at a certain point you have to be able to do that. And, for me what helped was a fourth step, was a house cleaning, was a step work, was getting a sponsor. And I've had 2 sponsors since I've gotten sober. The first one showed me the importance of showing up. This man would show up at my recovery house dressed in his work clothes after working, 10, 12 hours at a labor job, and he still showed me the importance of showing up. And my other sponsor now is the guy I still work with, is awesome because he just shows me the importance of keeping shit simple. Like he's just, bro, I'm not telling you anything that I made up. Everything is from somebody else. You can trust me on that. But he's got about 7 years sober. He's got a couple years younger than myself. So he's been sober since he's been about 21, 22. And, I just respect the hell out of him because he really is someone I met out here in recovery that wasn't in a sober house when I met him. He did do that whole thing years ago. But yet I always saw him at meetings. He had what I wanted. And, we still talk. I talked to him today on my way out of a meeting, and it's just good to have people like that in your corner.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We always stress to parents the importance of having their loved one gravitate to a recovery house.
Yeah.
Because they can be called on things you can't call them on at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you can't bullshit a bullshitter. It was funny you're talking about the guy sitting up. He never looks like it. Everybody's playing the game at home, and we're like, you can't enforce these boundaries at home like you can at a recovery house. I mean, because peer pressure works positively too.
Sure.
I mean, it don't have to be all night.
Yeah.
And like you're amongst your peers, and you're not bullshitting anybody in that house because everybody's walked the walk, and they've all talked, they've all did the conniving and that. So we always tell parents. I mean, you really got to consider. Considering a recovery house because they can enforce boundaries that you're going to have a lot of difficulty enforcing. Yeah. I mean, go make your bed and and go out and go look for a job and all, because at home they're just going to lay in bed all damn day. They ain't gonna, and like, what are you going to do? Physically drag them out? Where the peer pressure, they don't want to hear. They're going to go out the door.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is
and like.
I have such a deeper respect for loved ones, I think, than I ever did, and it's because I remember, I would break my mother's heart, break my father's heart, and then I'll go get high and forget about it. And I'll abuse their love. I'll use that against them. And my buddy Johnny I met out here says it great. Like, if anybody had the unpleasantry to love me at that point, like, I really feel bad for them because they just loved me and they didn't realize that was something I'd weaponize against them. And
I'm sure, because that's what we're taught from when we're a child. I
Right.
saw what it is to be a good parent, to be
Right.
a good spouse, parent. Where those same skills, you can literally kill your loved one. You can love them to
Absolutely,
death.
you really can.
And that's where the
Between
enabling
enablement,
becomes
yep.
so out of
Yeah.
control with people. And we tell them, you're doing what you're taught your whole life, but
Right.
you got to step back and you
Yeah.
got to re-engage how you do it. I mean, everybody says tough love. It's such a dated type thing now. We like to say disconnect with love.
Yeah.
And that's very hard to get through to parents because that's what you're supposed to
It's their
do as a
baby.
parent.
It's
You're
their
supposed to
baby.
run the burning building if
Absolutely.
need be.
I think education is the most important thing for
Oh,
parents.
definitely.
I don't
I have
think
to
that
agree.
there's just like I don't think there's one size fits all for the person who is in, active alcoholism or active addiction to find recovery. I don't think there's a one size fits all for parents. There's certainly not a how to love your loved one manual, right?
No.
So,
Right.
it's such a complicated thing, and I find that the best thing that I do, and this is again back to what we do so awesomely at Steps to Recovery and at Silver Pines, is we allow parents to be educated, but ultimately respect them for being where they're at, right? So there's the loved one who knows all well that they allow their son or daughter back into their home for however many times. There's a high likelihood that the same thing might happen. But, if that's what they choose to do, okay, how can we support you in choosing that decision? We may not support the decision. Just like when a guy or a client leaves AMA because he wants to, it's like, look,
Right.
I don't support your decision, but nonetheless, you will always have my support.
Right.
So I feel like we use a method. It's called the BOMB method. If anyone's interested,
That's just a big
yes.
bomb thing.
So that's
I'm
so
a
the Be a
BOMB
Loving
fan.
Mirror method is amazing, and I love to know that you're familiar with that approach because
Love
it's
BOMB.
not only so important, but that's, in my opinion, the most transferable to a family member. So our family therapist, her name is Mace. Her and I get to work together every Saturday morning where I get to do with her our family programming. And that's where we use. She's a BOMB certified clinician. And it's great because at the end of the day, when you get a parent, and I'm sure you're aware, when you get a parent who seems to really gravitate towards that approch, hey, go buy the book. Right? You can go buy the book. You can see for yourself.
That's all
the proof that's
I
there.
do it
Push
all
that
the
bucket
time.
every Wednesday
Yes.
night.
So I wouldn't be sober if it weren't for, I don't know if it was a bomb approach per se, but my mother, again, whom I love, I'm a typical little Italian-Irish son. My dad's Irish, my mother's Italian. She loved me to death. She still does. I remember there was a day where she looked at me and yelled at me and she said, because of your problem, I have to go to this meeting on Sunday nights. And she resented me for that. And I don't blame her because my mother is still to this day, even retired, a very hardworking woman. She was working 2 jobs at the time. She's like, I don't have time to do this, but you know what? If I don't, she understood if she didn't, she wouldn't get well herself. And it was going to those meetings that I would resent her for the knowledge she was gaining in those places, like bomb knowledge and
Definitely.
stuff. Because what was it doing? It was impeding on my ability to manipulate and to stay in the house and to say, I'll go to treatment tomorrow. And yes, this
It's a
time's
cult.
going to be
It's a
different.
cult. Then people are gonna
100%,
fill your head full of
absolutely.
stuff.
But you know what? I look back at it and I'm like, thank God for those people because there's some friendships my mother made that she still keeps in touch with. There was she
amazing.
needed it. And it was
Yeah.
such a selfish thing of me to not want her to go and get well because I was still in that very selfish thought of like, this is my problem, it's not yours. When in reality, like this was my problem that I was forcing on everybody.
Oh,
So
sure. It's a family
my
disease.
recovery house was because I had nowhere to go. I got
Right.
out of this last detox, Pyramid Detox in South Jersey in Hamilton, and I had nowhere to go. It was the earliest part of COVID. My brother and his wife were due to have their firstborn in 3 weeks or so after I went in there. I didn't even allow my mother the courtesy to enjoy her first son's first child birth experience or anything like that because God forbid if it's not all about me. So when I went to a recovery house in Levittown, it wasn't because I'm like, oh, I heard great things. It was like, I don't do homeless. That's not my story. I've never done the jails or prisons thing. It's not my story. Homeless is not my story. I lived out of my car for a few days because it was big enough, and I wouldn't survive on the streets in that aspect. I don't claim to know anything about that life. So for me, I had to go to a recovery house. I just didn't know how long this time was going to last, you know,
Right.
because I'd done them before. I've been in and out of them in South Jersey. But I mean, I guess you could say I was ready. Like I had finally been beaten to such an extent, and my sister-in-law being pregnant with Vinny, my nephew Vinny, you know, that was a huge thing for me. Like I wanted to be present in his life. I messed up being a son and a brother and a cousin and a friend and a boyfriend, you know, for the most of my 20s, but like, you know, that unborn baby, like I still had a chance to be a good uncle to him. And that was a huge motivating factor for me. I had no idea if I'd know him. My brother reserved every right to not let me be a part of that baby's
Right.
life.
How about does your brother have any animosity towards you on the earth because you were getting all the attention because you had all the issues?
Oh,
I
he
mean,
did for sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
that usually that's pretty common.
Oh,
in itself.
absolutely. He
Because-
was my brother's very much a not a self-made success, but my brother struggled in his own right with pills, you know, and he was able to do something that I sought to try and do for so long, which was put them down, not pick them back up. You know, he can have drinks, he can drink with impunity, it says in the big book, but my brother had a problem with pills, and I thought, okay, well, if he can put them down, so can I. And I was never able to. So the resentment set in, absolutely, because he would see, you know, he would then go on to finish his undergrad and get a great job and continue to grow at that great job. Still at it now, is in this management training program now. He lives in Florida now. It's amazing what he's done. And yeah, but I mean, especially 3-4 plus years ago, oh my God, like he'd see me and he told me one thing. He said, you know, what you do to my mother makes me want to kill you. And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
yo, we talking about my mother.
draining
I'm
my
like, that's
life
my
out of
mother.
me.
And he was just like, this my mother. And I
Right.
was like, damn, like my actions have me not even seen as being worthy to be
Yeah.
his brother.
Right.
You know?
And that is so hard for the families to understand, that they are devoting more time to the one that's struggling than the one that's doing well. And you know, that takes a lot of time for siblings to mend those fences and fix that. And it's just amazing to watch that happening.
Yeah.
Now, the family program, is that just for people, just for the clients?
That's just
at-
so the in-person aspect of it is just for the clients. We are actually in conversation with seeing if we offer a couple of virtual as well. Normally the virtual are reserved for family members of clients as well as former clients as family members and things like that. But it's growing in success. It's growing in a lot of popularity, and I know that we're actually having conversations about making it open to just outside people, because there's no conversations about topics as far as clients specifically. There's not, you know, that we Mace and her team who run the virtual sessions are very intentional about not allowing the parent whose son's in one of our facilities to use the opportunity to just dump on their son or daughter. Like, they want to vent and they allow them to, but at the end of the day, like, it's a space that's shared by dozens of people, and you know, sometimes more than that even. So we keep it respectful and making sure that, look, again, this is meant to be educational for everybody. So I know we're trying to extend it even beyond just our clients, because we do believe so much in it. And like, for what I do in outreach, you know, I'm all throughout the 5 counties I represent, and I market to all the 5 counties. And that's almost always my most commonly asked question is like, what is your level of family involvement?
Right.
And I think it's because we've made such progress with the actual client, be it in like what we know now about the brain chemistry, about how that's affected, having MAT, so much of what we've already discussed tonight. But what has still remained a little stagnant, or what has still remained, was, okay, how can we also get to the family members and offer them help? And here's the thing, not even offer them help with how to deal with their loved one, but how to heal themselves with everything that they've gone through.
Yes.
And that's why I have such a tremendous respect, because again, every time my mother, my father, my family and I got into those heated arguments, I went and got high. I went and got high. I left that wreckage for them to sit in and deal with.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get high. And
Yeah.
you know, that's the trauma that we inflict on loved ones and things
Right.
like that. So
That's like, and I was your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would go to these meetings, like, well, he's sick, and
yeah.
I don't have the addicted brain, so
Right.
I can go out and have a drink and hang out with my friends, listen to music. And it's just like, this is his deal. That's not mine. And, you know, I'm not going to be here, but I need to, you know, fix him. So I'm going to be here and they're going to tell me how to fix them.
Yeah.
And I've always shared on here that I used to go with my uncle to his AA meetings
Okay.
because the police said you have to go to AA.
Yeah.
And we would sit with him in there, or we would go to the laundromat and hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And then all I remember is walking in with all the slogans. Easy does it, one day at a time, let it go, let it God. Like, and we would always make fun of it. Like, I was like, oh, please, like, this is going to save someone's
Yeah.
life. And then the first thing they said, oh, we have a beginner's Al-Anon meeting. Why don't you step into that? And I walked in the door, and they had all those slogans on the floor, and I was like, what the? No way. I'm like, I am not joining this cult.
Yeah.
No. And it was shortly after that I did their Day of Enlightenment. It's like the educational piece. And then I went to their, it was called the Parent Group then. And
This is Livingren.
Livingren. And I sat there for 4 weeks and listening, throw your kid out, throw your kid out. And I'm just like, I couldn't say my name. I was literally a blubbering idiot for 4 weeks. And I was just like, I can't understand why you would throw your kid out. And then like week 5, I went in and I'm like, you know what? They're not telling me to throw him out. They're telling me that he has a choice to live here and or to live the life he's grown accustomed to. And that was my first, like, I like this meeting because I could come in, and once I was able to talk, I could vent a little bit. And I would get pissed off that they wouldn't give me the cure.
Yeah.
So from that, I tried a couple NA meetings, and they just, I don't like that format. I don't like that fellowship type, you know, you can't talk, read from this. And I'm like, this is bullshit. So, but I've gained a lot of knowledge from them, and I use tools from them.
Right.
I love BOM.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
BOM.
I was introduced to it through Mace, and you know, I get it.
I love
absolutely
it. She
get
wants me to take the course, but
Yeah.
I'm like, and we just did the course and for Smart Recovery
Okay.
for family and friends.
Another avenue. Another
So,
great avenue. For
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
And it kind of goes hand in hand with BOM as well,
Yeah.
because it gives you those tools.
Right.
And the first thing that I had gotten into was the partnership, which is Beyond Addiction.
Okay.
So I went through that training as well. And like all 3 of those come together, and like learning how to talk to your loved one and gear them towards, you know, finding their path to recovery was just so amazing to me.
Yeah. It's such a, it is, it's true. It's such like a, it's realizing that there's a choice for your loved one to make, and that it's not you making it for them. I remember when that was, when that hit me, because it was, you know, you're kicking me out. You're making the decision to do what you know is going to result in you leaving. It's not the same thing, you know? I chose by my actions to do something that my mother and father had the right to say are not allowable in this house, you know? And I thought, well, I'm your son, you know, you can't.
Right.
And it was really difficult again for my parents, because my mother going to those meetings, you know, she was of the opinion that you are, right? He's making the choice. And then my father, knowing what I know now, still in his own, you know, issues at the time, he struggled to kick me out, you know? And it was, if it weren't for my father, I would have been kicked out long before I eventually was, because he was the one who was just so dreaded of, if he's getting high, but in my house, at least I know where he is, right?
Right.
Whereas, like, if he goes and gets high and they find him dead in an alley in Camden, I'll never forgive myself, he said, you know? And then again, it just got to the point where they both really were educated on, like, your son is a grown man. Like, the actions that he chooses to take, they're not... And I can only imagine that, for not just my parents, but for many parents, it's like, where did we go wrong with him, right? And I remember
sure.
like
You beat yourself
grabbing
up in the beginning.
absolutely, like grabbing my mother eventually and saying like, and this was so mixed with my own guilt, where like I'd say things like that to just try to feel better about how I knew I was acting and how wrong I knew it was. But I would tell her, I would just be like, this isn't your fault, and when, if I didn't say anything that actually held any weight in my own heart or any integrity whatsoever, I meant that. I meant at least saying like, this isn't your fault, and I wish it was different, and I wish I didn't act in the way that I did.
Right.
That's when we always had the parents with the 3 C's at that point.
Yeah.
You didn't cause it, you can't control it,
Right.
you can't cure it. And it's not your fault. Mm-hmm. Because we all bitter. Did we give them too much freedom?
Right.
Were we too hard on
Yep.
them? I mean, they're looking for that answer. And like as a parent, you think you understand addiction, like most people do. Most people don't understand addiction. They just have a preconceived notion of what it is, and it's so inaccurate. And I was one of them people, so I don't get angry at them people now because I was one of them people.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I thought I knew about addiction. I didn't because I grew up with a whole family of it. I had a cousin that died of an overdose in the city.
Yes.
I used to tell my cousin, I was like, well, just
stop.
stop, man.
Yeah.
You're killing your
Don't
grandmother.
you see what you're doing?
Because my grandmother would
Yeah.
pull him in and she'd be the enabler and she
Yeah.
was older too. And like she'd be like putting the washcloths on his head, trying to, and he'd just go back out again.
Yeah.
Like just stop.
So hard to
Not knowing that he
understand.
couldn't just stop.
Right.
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 Be a man.
Yeah.
Pull your bootstraps.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
your shit together.
Yeah.
Eric
A lot of parents
wants
feel like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Eric wants to know, what does BALM stand for? And it's BALM, and it's Be a Loving Mirror. And the book is from Beverly Buncher. I recommend it to everybody. I usually have a copy so I can show them, but my girlfriend has it right now.
All right, well, that's good. It's getting put to good use.
And she's loving it. She's digging it. She's
Yeah.
folding over all my pages. I'm
Old
kidding.
dog.
I'm just kidding.
It's a deep subject matter. It's a deep
is.
subject matter. It's important. And I mean, to both of your points, like just that tendency that a loved one has to get angry and to act out in anger. It's very understandable. It's very understandable. You're hurt, you're disappointed, you're lied to. I'll get mad over the guy who doesn't hold the door for me at Wawa. You know what I mean? Like I can find, a lot of us can find the easiest of reasons to get mad at somebody, let alone it being like the person that we're responsible for loving, right?
Right.
Lying to our faces and
Yeah.
things like that, and so, I mean, just that ability to understand the BALM method, but also just, again, not even BALM, but just getting around people who are offer the ability to not offer the cure, right? Because no such thing exists.
There is no cure.
It's funny, your reaction to I'm just waiting for the cure is a lot of people's reaction to walking into AA.
Right.
Like, I'm in AA because they said there's the answer. Like, all right, what test do I got to take? What do I got to
Right,
do?
right.
How many Hail Marys? Like, they just did confession, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what's my penance of my sobriety, whatever, but it's there's no cure for it, obviously. There's just the diligent work on a daily basis. And all
It's a
we have is-
disease that could be managed throughout
that's
your
it.
life.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
you have to
and
manage it.
and for me, my ability to manage it, my daily reprieve, if you will, is contingent upon my spiritual condition. If I'm not spiritual, then I'm in trouble, and that's the case for a lot of, especially even family members. It may not necessarily be a spiritual thing, but there has to be this ability for a family member in order to not act out in anger and to try as hard as it is to just be a little understanding of what's happening. There has to be something deeper than just trying with all of their might to not
Right.
act out in a way that's reactionary
Right.
to them,
Because I know my loved one, when he was going through it, he was going through Livingren, and they were like, his counselor said, I think it's best for him to go to a recovery house. I think that would be, best for him. And my loved one saying, yeah, I'm going to a recovery house. And I'm like, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, they fixed you. I'm the best person in the world to help you through
Yeah.
this, and I will keep you well.
Right.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
Can you get rid of that? Oh, thank you. So that was just so hard for me.
Yeah.
And then there was a relapse, and then it was like we found him
Yeah.
having some struggles, and it was just like I didn't like what I saw. I thought I don't want him homeless and out on the street,
Right.
and God forbid something should happen to him. But then, something happened in the house, and
Yeah.
it was just like I can't live with this if that's So he went into treatment. He was like, "Well, I'll go," and he walked out, and just from that short amount of time of the education that I got, he walked out the door, and I was like, he's not ready.
Yeah.
He's not ready. But at least he's going somewhere that might be able to help him.
Yeah.
And even though that was not his last, his third time around, I remember like, I'm going to CA, I'm going to NA.
Yeah.
They're the best. I'm not going to those old head AAs. Like, no way.
They're my favorites now. I said all the same things. It's funny. They're my favorites now.
And he ended up in Florida, so I went to visit him for his birthday, and I said, "Well, I'll pick you up from work to go to work so that we can spend some time before I go home." No, Mom, don't pick me up because I get up at 5 a.m. to go my AA. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? He goes,
Right.
I love them. They're old
Yeah.
heads, and that's what's helping me. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
then
the
I'm
old-
getting up at 5. I'll take you the old heads, and I'll wait out in the
old head
parking lot.
message of sobriety. It works.
And
I
it
was
works
at one of those
if you work
meetings
it.
today. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's crazy how you just think that you have control over this.
Yeah.
And so many parents out there still feel that they have control, even though they see that nothing they're doing is working.
Right.
And a friend of mine who also went through the partnership, the craft, she always says, doing nothing is doing something.
Sure.
And I just think about that all the time, and it's crazy how when you're to a point where you can't do anything, trying to teach somebody
Yeah.
new into this, that's touchy.
It is, and but that's where like the freedom is for the loved one. That's where the acceptance comes in. That's where they're able to determine like, okay, well, you know what? It's not my problem to solve. You know what I mean?
Right.
It is on my loved one. But yeah, I mean, just that it's such a fine line of when that readiness is going to set in. And like the hope out there is for the parent who's listening, who's loved them, or whose child or the wife or husband who's listening, that their spouse is still like. I had no reason to believe that this last time was the last time.
Right.
I just honestly one day at a time kept going to meetings. I got into a great recovery house with men that I'm still very close with today, and like I never left that. They say in AA, especially like get in with the herd and stay in the center of the herd, and it's easier to stay safe when you're infiltrated, and that's what I did. I hunkered down with a lot of good men, some of whom have years sober, others were just starting off when I was. But I had no reason to suspect that this time was going to be different. I stopped. I'm a huge believer in empowerment approaches to things. I'm a huge believer in when I'm using and drinking, I have nothing to be hopeful about. I have no purpose to life. I might as well just pack it all in. If it's not this bag that does me in, hopefully it's the next one. Everyone would be better off without me. All of that stuff,
Oh, you always heard that. Everyone
All
be better
that
off without me. I
Yep.
hear that
All that
constantly
stuff,
from you.
But then when I got sober, it's like a day at a time. I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, I always really liked helping people. I'm sober. I can maybe help people, And it was really just a guy outside of one of my AA meetings, somebody who I'm still close with and talk a lot with him. He was just, I was talking, I was like, yeah, man, like I had finished at this point after about 6 months sober. I finished my bachelor's degree from Rowan. And
Good for you.
thank you. And I'm like, I think I might want to go to graduate school, but I'm kind of blah, blah. And he just goes, bro, do it. You're sober. And like, it was just such a light bulb for me. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I don't have to rest on that 12-year-long
Right.
excuse that I had of like, what's the sense in starting something? I'm only going to mess it up and get high or something again. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, that's what they mean by like a life beyond your wildest dreams. It's not that I'm going to go on and own this huge house. Maybe that's in God's plan for me. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, for me, the freedom comes in being able to just have the choice to
Sure.
get up and go to work and then get up and go to a meeting and then go to class and come here and do a podcast. Like at no point does my life today dictate where a bag or a bottle will like allow me to go. You
Right.
know?
That's
and for
awesome.
so long, that's all I knew. Like, you know, well, okay, we're going to the Phillies game. Okay, well, I need to bring this much amount of drugs. I need to drink this much beer before I go in because I have no money to buy beer while in the state. And it was just like, you're going to a
process,
Phillies game,
yeah, it's
dude.
insane.
You know?
Yes.
And like, I went to a Phillies game sober. I went on vacation sober. I love my girlfriend sober, and everything that I do. You know, I've been present in my nephew's life. Now I have this beautiful little niece. My brother and his wife had another baby. I have this beautiful little niece, and
Congratulations.
yeah,
Awesome.
it's like, you know, that stuff, like you can't put a price on that, you know, for me at all.
It's amazing. Like, you know, as we said, me and Lori aren't in the recovery, but, you know, we're not big drinkers or anything, but we have more friends in recovery now than we have normies.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right? My
Yeah.
girlfriend hates that.
No,
word.
it's
yeah.
fun.
Now,
And
is
like, you
she
know,
a normie?
She is.
She is
And that's
a
odd
normie.
in itself. I
She
mean,
is, and
that's
she
it.
loves the hell out of somebody who's not. You know, she's a nurse, so she's an amazing person, but she's very empathic in that way. Like she understands diseases and things, and when she comes home from work and she's talking to me about things and using words that I can't even pronounce, let alone spell. But like in there is that person that, like, you know, I make her proud today, being a man in recovery. And
Awesome.
When-
Now, were you with her before?
No, we actually we met actually since I got sober. We met online, and she was a traveling nurse at the time, and her and I kind of fell in love rather early in our relationship. And she's made some roots out here. We've kind of began a little bit of our, you know, a little family with a little fur child right now, my
Yeah.
little puppy. But the future's bright for her and I. It's just something that, like everything else in my life, I get to enjoy just a day at a time.
Right.
Yeah, you're experiencing things that you probably wouldn't have experienced
Never.
if you were still drinking and
Never
drugging.
would
I
have
mean,
been experienced.
I mean, I so many people's lives are so much more enlightened. Like guys we talk to and all, like they're living life beyond their wildest dreams
Yeah.
now, because you know so many avenues open up, and you mend a lot of those bridges, you know, that you burned down behind you and you know they're the most genuine, happy people. Like my friends in recovery, whereas like my normie friends are all miserable. I hate my job. I hate my wife. And like, you know, most of the people in recovery are always upbeat, you know, because they learn to look at life differently and to appreciate things more instead of taking it for granted. You know, like and they're the most humble people, always willing to help you. I mean, you'll get more guys to come over and help you put a roof on a house than a recovery than your
for
normie
sure.
friend. Well, I like
Yeah.
it, but you know,
Yeah.
I'll be
get my dogs.
hungover.
Yeah, really.
I get the dog's nails clipped.
I
I
had
like
lunch today with a buddy of mine. It was a work thing, but I've known him for years, and he's been sober 10 years. He had his 10-year yesterday, actually.
Awesome.
And he had this really traumatic. He has a heart condition, and he didn't know he had a heart condition until it was about 6 months ago, where he was at his place, and this is someone who's very successful in the treatment industry, and he's been in it for a while. And again, he's 10 years sober, and you know, real active exercise guy. He liked to lift weights and things like that. Well, he's sitting at home one day, and he's getting this really intense chest pain that he's also experiencing in his back as well. And he's not a go to the hospital guy, but he went to the hospital. Thank God he did. And he knew a nurse there, and he was telling me the story today. He knew a nurse there. And the nurse said, like, if he's here, we're not just going to say, okay, go home and take some vitamins and, like, come back, or take some, you know, whatever, some ibuprofen and come back if it's not a problem. She said, if he's here, something's up. So they run 3 tests on him. And after the second test, like he says, they basically rushed me right into open heart, like intensive
geez.
surgery. And and thank God he's okay. But it's crazy that you say that, because while he was laying on that table getting ready to be put under to have the surgery, he wasn't thinking of the amount of money he's made. He wasn't thinking
Right.
about the time that, you know, he owned this treatment center and he did this really successfully. Like, you know, nor was he thinking about all of, like, the burdens of life. Like, he was thinking about, thank God for his time sober, because what it was allowable to do was, like, reconnect with the things that matter most. And you don't have to be in sobriety for that. You don't have to
Right.
be in recovery for that, to just appreciate that, you know. And I say this to a lot of guys, because you can have a car, crash it, get another one, right? You can have a wife, you could get divorced, get remarried again, you know. You could have that job of your dreams and then lose it and get another job, you know. But, like, you can't lose your life and get another one.
No.
You know, and you
That's-
do not need to be in recovery to appreciate that. You don't not need to have survived 9 overdoses and a bunch of Narcan reversals to really accept that and appreciate that. But for us in recovery, and he told me today, he goes, dude, I was first it was drugs. I got sober and I got a second chance at life, and then it was this heart thing. That thank God I listened to my body. I went and got surgery. Now I have a third chance at life. And he says,
Right.
yeah, I'll never take that for granted. And again, you don't have to be in recovery or have a heart condition like he did in order to really appreciate life. But for me, it's that spiritual aspect. It's that keeping it simple aspect. Work is complicated. My relationship is complicated. School is complicated. Life is complicated. For me, AA is not.
It's learning to live on life's terms.
Yeah, I
It's-
go into an AA meeting, and for 60 minutes, I identify as an alcoholic named Joey. And I say that because if I was Joey the alcoholic, I would also be, well, I'm also Joey the student. I'm also Joey the marketer. I'm also Joey the son. I'm also, all that shit doesn't matter. I'm an alcoholic named Joey. So as long as I remember that part is first, I'll keep everything else in check. You know?
Yeah, because my loved one, when it first started going on for us, I'm like, we'll never be grandparents. We'll never, and recovery has given us two amazing grandchildren.
Right.
So it's a blessing when they get into that recovery process and live a life beyond their wildest dreams, because when they're active, nobody's expecting
No, it's a
good
shell of an
things.
existence.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They say for every, I think someone could check the stat on it, but I'm pretty sure the statistic is for every one person who's in active substance use disorder, there's 8 loved ones that are affected by that. And that could be a very underreported number, but when you consider the reported numbers of, the people who are either homeless or housing insecure, who like don't have the ability to check their 8 people, there's others like me who I can identify dozens of family members that honestly were directly affected by my
Right.
addiction. So it does balance out, but then you consider, how many hundreds of thousands of people are diagnosed with substance use disorder. It's like, you can't help but think like, oh my gosh, if we can just help some of these, imagine the exponential by 8 per person are then helped by this.
Right.
And then they can help people. And I mean,
Exactly.
it's very much how I believe this works. Like I love my life, but I love my life because it's awarded me the integrity to be able to help other people.
Right.
And that's the same thing that family members get as well. And like when we get sober by the collective we of people who use or drink, like the beauty in it really is like when you get to see what it does for your loved ones. Like my mother getting to call me today at lunch, and I'm still very much like that. When she calls me at 1:30 like she did today, my heart drops. I'm like, something's wrong, right? It's so funny because it's like reverse, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when I
you
used to
like
call
it
her,
every time the phone rang.
That's exactly
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Exactly.
So she has to leave me a voicemail where I can see, and I see the text and the voicemail, and she's like, no big deal, just checking in, whatever, right? But I'm just like, how amazing is it that my mom just gets to just call and check in?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Now, do you get like upset? Like, what do you mean? How am I doing? Like,
No, I used to. And again,
Yeah.
I mean, I've never really struggled with that either. I mean, certain people, like, I don't think, when people say, like, no one wants to go home and think that in 3 weeks you're going to earn all your trust back. If anyone is really that naive, like, you're just that naive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will say that, in our minds, we'll say, well, I'm not that naive. I know it's going to take work on my part. I know I'm going to have to really put a lot of work in and all that. But that work, we think, should be enough a lot sooner than it is for everybody else.
Right.
So admittedly, I definitely did, and I still do. Like again, like maybe it's not with that, but it's certain things like with my girlfriend, or certain things still absolutely with my parents. You know what I mean? It used to be like he's gone to the bathroom 2 times in the last hour.
Oh, yeah.
Something's up, right?
Oh, my God.
Something's
Are
up,
you
right?
okay in
Yeah.
there?
It's
Oh,
no
my God.
longer that, fortunately.
Yeah.
When I go home to their place, my mother, I don't think, still feels the need to count the beers in the fridge before I come over. And being Italian, she has that fridge in the garage. You know what I mean?
Oh,
For
yeah.
for the gravy and all that stuff.
You
So
got a TV in the kitchen?
she does, absolutely, yeah, small little one on the
Yes.
counter. Yeah. So I feel like it's gotten beyond her feeling like she needs to, count that and stuff like that. But absolutely, I mean, and my girlfriend having really slighter experience as to seeing that part of me, slighter less experience into seeing that part of me. She knows what I'm capable of, and that's by what I've told her and things like that. So, when I get that question of like, well, that meeting got done at 9, like it's 9:50, and where are you? Like I want to. Well, what do you mean? It's like, dude, that's a small price to pay. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and especially for my parents, like
Right.
I put them through hell. Like if they need to ask a follow-up question, like the least I can do is answer it for
Right.
them. You know, it's kind of
Yeah.
how I feel.
Guys, we have about 10 minutes left. If anybody has any questions or wants to call in, 267-737-8031. Or comment.
Answer anything.
Christine says, this is such a great show tonight.
What do you mean? All the other ones stunk?
No, it is. And I'm so grateful that you could come on and be with us tonight. It saved me. I didn't have to talk.
Yeah, I don't shut up, so I appreciate you giving me a time slot because I can.
And I can tell you had all your vocabulary training on what terms to
Yes,
use. We
yeah.
took an all-day course to learn how to talk
Oh, no,
again
I'm sure.
nicely.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
sure.
and-
Again, I still
Well,
learn the hard way. Like, trust me, me saying substance use disorder
You're
is
substance free instead of clean.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
that's
insinuated I was dirty.
No, I mean that's.
We went through all that. Holy smokes!
I'm in an MSW program at Temple, which is a very all inclusive school. You know what I mean? So I learned the hard way through the early part of my year last year in school of, you know, not even politically correct, like not even that, just the accepted vernacular, the accepted vocabulary.
But who's the-
but I'll still let it slip. Like I'll still be like, dude, at the end of the day, like I'm a dope head who goes to Camden, I'm gonna cop dope, right? And they're like, oh my god, look at this guy. I'm like, yeah. I got
Who's the least
the whole part of me.
politically correct when you're a room full of people who are covered?
Yeah,
They
that's
still use
true.
all the
Yeah.
old terminology.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, guys, you know.
Yep.
Well, I am what I am. I said, don't use that word. Please.
Right.
Don't equate me with it.
Yeah.
You know, and I have to say the one thing, and I say this to anybody that is a family member that has somebody out there struggling. Right now, virtual is still going on. I think the best thing for a family member to do is jump on a open meeting. For one, preferably that your loved one's not attending.
Yeah, that's not recommended.
But I think it's just so beneficial to us to hear the stories, to understand where our loved ones are and what they're going through. And Live and Grin, they had an amazing program, and I hope we get back to it, where they would bring in the patients and a speaker in long-term recovery. And the patients really didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was happening.
Right.
And they walked into the room like, what the?
The parents on the other side of the room. The
Yeah.
patients are over here.
So we have our parent group, we have patients, and we have, and that, you know, they'll tell their story, and then it's questions and suggestions, and nobody wants to raise their hand.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you'll see somebody from
Yeah.
the patient
Yeah.
raise their
And
hand.
then it starts to,
and then it
it
just
takes momentum then.
That is the most amazing meeting that I've been to.
Sure.
To just to hear them, like, I didn't realize I was doing that to my mom. I didn't realize that I was doing that to, you know,
Right.
whomever.
Here's
So
Eric, one of his great phrases there he put down. He always has something funny to say. He goes, beware of the shoe salesmen in the rooms. He said, they are the loafers and the sneakers are the slippers that pull you down.
I love
Keep it
Eric.
simple.
He's
Yes.
a long-term recovery.
Yeah.
And he,
Eric is
he's always got
awesome.
something clever.
Yes, Eric's
You're,
in-
as always, Eric, your witty banner amuses me.
Yes, it's always over my head. he like always goes over my head. But he's awesome. He's from Ohio.
Cool.
And he comes in. We used to watch another program just like this. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing,
Okay.
because he passed away.
Yeah.
Not of an overdose, just because of his health issues. And it was funny, like we had gained a family.
Yeah.
And after his passing, we were just like, you know, we need to do something.
Right.
So I was like, I'll try it. What the heck? Like in my kitchen, yeah. I was scared to death.
Right,
I was
yeah.
a mess for the
Sure.
first month,
Yeah.
probably. And I still get
Right.
weird, especially when I don't have a guest
Right.
because it's like
They're just trying to fill time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard.
yeah.
As they're talking, you can see a meatloaf sitting on the stove
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
it. Still there in the kitchen.
Yeah, and it's great, and the kids crying and
Yeah.
coming in. Hey, Gigi, what you
Yeah,
doing? Like,
yeah. It's real though. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's real. That's what people are attracted to. The authenticity of it. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
That's what really moved us to this. I mean, we did outreach for years and all. You know, we dealt, right on the front lines with people,
Yeah.
and we've seen a lot of help out there for those suffering with substance use disorder. But the families are being left behind.
Yeah.
We're really seeing that, and like there's a lot of help out there. Just nobody wants to take it. It's so hard to get somebody to take advantage of it.
Right.
But like the families just sit struggling. They didn't know where to turn. Like
Yeah.
we didn't know where to turn for. Luckily, all my friends had went to Livergreen.
Yeah.
That's my good
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
Right there. So I go to Livergreen. That's
Right.
what fixed all my friends. I mean, that's the only addiction place we're even aware of. But
Yeah.
Sorry.
people don't take the time to even learn about these places because you don't have to. You know,
Right.
like, and once we started educating ourselves, and like I said, we changed gears and we went to this. We'd rather, we work with the parents and siblings and loved ones.
Yeah.
I mean, but we'll still find a bed for people if they come to us. Like somebody's a child struggling. I mean, we got the connections now. We
Right.
call around and cut through the red tape, which you
Yeah.
know how bad the red
Absolutely.
tape is. I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
it's so frustrating for people. So, we enjoy what we're doing. We were very lucky, very fortunate. People helped us. So that's what we do.
That's awesome.
We're giving back.
That's
you know,
awesome.
And we enjoy what we do.
Yeah, the amount of
Yeah.
people who can kind of link arm in arm and like really help each other to try and again for every one of me, there's an 8 of you. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And
So
it's
Right.
like people are just so humble. Like I said, like I'm a DJ too, and I do all Living Grins events and all.
Okay.
Like we'll have events at Georgine's. We got
Yeah.
240 people in
Right.
recovery, and everybody's having a blast, man.
Yeah.
And everybody's clean and serene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so cool to
Right.
see that.
Yeah.
See no fist fights at
yeah.
the weddings.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And like I said, I just have a whole new outlook on
Yeah.
people in recovery, and it's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, education is where
Yeah.
it's at, people.
I agree.
And with that being said, November 19th is our next dance at Georgine's. $35 a ticket. I have tickets available. Please reach out, text me, message me, whatever you're on, if you want to go. This is our anniversary. We started this a year
Okay.
ago. And this will be our 4th dance.
Cool.
So we had one for Harvest Moon, which was before Thanksgiving. We had one in Valentine's, and then we had Christmas in July, which I
Okay.
hope they change that up because I don't want to think about.
Georgine's is the spot that's right between like by like
We-
Mill Creek.
We have I'm not sure. We have a caller. Hello, caller.
Hey, how's it going?
Is this sexy voice Brian?
It is.
hey, what's up?
Thank you guys for a great show. Not that all the other ones stunk, but it was great to hear like the enthusiasm. No offense, but like somebody like young in recovery. You know,
Yes.
I mean, just the amount of work that he's put in so far, and like his vision to what he wants to do it's a lot, and it's a welcome thing. You know.
Mhm.
And I need to get back to being that way. It's something that I haven't been going to a lot of meetings. I've just been working like crazy,
Right.
and I know what I put in for my recovery. Well, that's like one of the first things I lose.
Right.
And I've got so much from this program where it's just like you forget sometimes and you get stuck in a rut. So I'm probably that person that isn't happy all the time, but I know what I got to do to get back to it, and it's just like I'm dragging my feet, and I don't know why, but it sucks. And hearing tonight, I left one of my part-time job stopped on Thursday, so maybe it's a sign of me needing to cut back on how much I work,
Right.
and give that time to meetings and give that time to my girlfriends and my family members and my loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Awesome girlfriend. Awesome name too.
and she spells it the same way too.
Yeah.
And then like Joey, like we have two fur kids, and it's just
They're a lot.
it's an amazing life that I have, and it's all because of this program. And I need to get back to the basics, and get to those meetings and dive into readings and get a sponsor and start sponsoring people once I have that work-life balance figured out, which I suck at. So,
Yeah, I feel like we'll spend forever trying to find balance. You know what I mean? And you don't
Yeah.
have to be someone in recovery to try to find balance. We'll never find it. The best we can do is the best we can do. But I definitely
Yeah.
encourage you to get back. And guess what? Not because of you, but because of the person who needs your experience in order for them to get this gift. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That's what I tell
Yeah.
people who are like, I got to try to get, because that was me too. Like I was away from the program, and somebody hit me with like, dude, how many people are not being helped because they need you to help them? And I'm like, you're gonna go there on me, dude. But it's really exactly kind of the approach I had to look at it. Because selfishly, I'll be like, yo, I'm good. Like I don't need to go back. I'm good. But in reality, it stopped being about me when I accepted the program in general. So when he was like, dude,
Yeah.
it's not about you, I'm like, yep, I signed up for that, didn't I?
Yeah.
And that's great because
yeah, I mean,
Brian always had, great things to share and to give back, and he hasn't been around lately. So get your ass back around, boy.
yeah. I mean, I've got like a few 24 hours lined up together, and I've heard about people going out after like 25
Yeah.
or 30 years, and you get complacent and you think you're good, and then you realize that you're not good, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely tell by my attitude. That my girlfriend could probably tell it too, but she doesn't want to call me out because she hasn't been going to meetings either. So it's like, well, if she calls me out, I'm definitely gonna call her out.
That's why both of you are playing a game of chicken. You're just waiting to see who's going to do it first.
Yeah.
So true.
It's that those mind games. Like, oh, I can't wait till she says something, because you have it like all lined up in your head, all this artillery, and you pull like one dagger, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pay for that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I said, it was great hearing your enthusiasm, and
Thanks,
I
man.
appreciate what you guys do. And it kept on throwing me off because I'm originally from Levittown, New York. So every time you guys said
yeah.
Levittown, I was like,
The
holy
other
crap.
one.
I was like,
The
yeah,
other one.
The other one.
yeah, the famous one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or infamous, depending on what side you want to look at.
yeah, sometimes good enough, sometimes not so good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
swear Kensington's the heroin capital of
Yeah.
the country, and Levittown's the recovery
Yeah.
capital of the country.
Right up there with Boca, Florida, and places like that.
Yeah, not far from there now. So.
Yeah.
No, I know he's from Florida, and
Nice.
I hate anybody in Florida
Nice.
because that's where I want to be.
It's still cold down. It gets cold down here. It
Oh,
just
give
doesn't know
give
that
me a
much.
break.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Look up the weather for Jacksonville, Florida. It's like for us Floridians, well, I get, oh my god,
You're
it's
freezing
so much
down there, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm freezing.
Anything like below 80, my girlfriend is like, oh my god. you
They
guys
got
dying
the
there.
fur
I'm
lined
like,
bathing suits down
Yeah.
there. For the,
yeah, she has like the heated blanket on probably tonight.
Oh,
Oh
man.
no.
Meanwhile, it's like 70 degrees. but thank you guys. Just want to call it.
Thank you. We miss you,
Even
Brian.
though I have like some time, sometimes you get stuck in ruts. So I just want to give hope to people who are out there may feel the same way. Like it's always, like they say, pink clouds and yellow stars and green diamonds or whatever.
Yeah.
My man.
Whatever the trick one is. But thank you guys.
My man.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling it.
Love you,
No
Brian.
problem. Love you guys too.
Take care. And my stepfather says, excellent show. I'm sure others were helped. We're getting a lot of good feedback. So anytime you want to come back and chat with us.
I'll bring friends. I'll bring a
Bring
couple
fr-
sober friends, and we can make
Bring
this.
your girlfriend. We can.
Oh God, she'll have plenty to say about
Yeah,
me.
like
for
what,
sure.
what it's like,
Yeah,
living
no,
with
that's
someone
true.
in recovery,
That's
the
true.
trials and tribulations.
Again, brand new to all this, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I mean, she's had to learn a lot in her own regard. And
Yeah.
again, just shout out to the program, like just my friends who had loved ones who have helped her, right? Like in the same way
Right.
that they have helped me. like, you know, there's been times where she's needed to lean on the loved ones of my friends, and they've, you know, they're her friends, they're our friends, but you know, they're being there for her, you know, being because they're in recovery themselves, or because they've loved someone who's in recovery for long enough to know the experiences.
Right.
Yeah. No, that'd be
Yes.
cool.
And you're nuts, Eric. He loves lake effect blizzards. No, not me. I hate snow. I never want to see it ever again in my life.
It was so intense. It was cool. Some Michigan skies it's hard to beat some Michigan skies. I have to say, they were gorgeous. It was a really cool place to live.
In the summer.
I would just probably prefer some different context of my living there, not because I'm in a faith-based inpatient, you know, kind of intensive place.
Right.
I'll visit next time, you know, come back.
Okay, guys.
Faith
This
base. You're going to Lake Michigan and Michael roll the boat a ship. That's what everybody thinks these meetings are on. They
I know.
They think it's like
religious
some kind of
cults
cult.
and shit.
And
Yeah.
people kumbaya.
Yep.
yeah. Well, guys, it is a little after 10:30, and I just want to thank you for coming in.
Yes,
Really,
absolutely.
man, you're a
Thank
great
you.
guest, man. You're
Great
a
guest.
wealth of knowledge.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
I hope that they open it up to, you know,
Yeah.
the community.
Yeah, I'll
because
be
that
sure
would
to.
be-
Yeah, I'll be sure to stay in connection with you about
Yes.
that. And you know, if anyone does need help, and it's for someone who's in the area or even outside the area, and there's help that's needed for your loved one in a intensive, you know, type of a treatment setting, you know, please feel free to get my information, you know, from
and
where
you can put it on the page.
and I'll
too,
I'll
as well.
comment on the page with my direct line, you know, in a professional sense. If someone needs help, you know, I'm always here to try and connect that person to resources regardless.
Right. Awesome. So, guys, we will see you here next Friday. We have Barbara Kay in the house next Friday. She is funny as hell. I just love her. And she's going to share her story and probably give us a few laughs. But we are here. We are here every Friday night from 9 to 10:30. Please subscribe, like, and share. Especially share, because you never know who may need to hear this tonight. Everybody have a great week. We will see you next Friday.
Night, gang.
night.
Remember, recovery works if you work it.
Peace out, everybody.
Peace out. This Lori's quiet.